Hi, how's it going? So what I'm going to be talking about today is a correction to reports. If you find that you're having this on your cut lists, you can go through the following steps to correct it until it's properly corrected in the report center. So if you'll notice here, I have a whole bunch of fillers. That's what the issue was brought to light here. So I have two fillers that are 8 by 30.5. But if I look over here, my cabinet quantity list shows for 4 cabinets. Well, that's incorrect. Why is that? Well, if we go to the next page, we'll see that I have 2 more fillers of 8 by 30.5. The only difference is they're different materials, solid birch and solid maple. Now, the reason why that this is happening is that the SQL query that creates this list here doesn't take into account for different materials. So we're going to show you how to take care of that. And I've already done this in my copy here. If we go here, same report, but now I have, for my solid birch, I have 2 pieces. And I go down here, I have 2 separate pieces. So let's go over how we did that. First, I'm going to select the report that I'm having an issue with, which would be my board stock report. I'm now going to go to Setup Reports, and that's the report that's highlighted. The first thing we're going to do is create a copy of the report. Let's call it copy of, and just hit OK. Now all we're going to be doing to correct this is we're going to be going to the report properties, and the issue is in the parts table, which is what feeds the data to the report itself. And like I said, it's the cabinet quantity field. So this string that we have here is what we need to edit. So I can either right click on it and select copy, or I could go use my keyboard and hit Control and C to copy it, and that puts it into the Windows clipboard. Now we're going to open up a notepad editor like Notepad or WordPad or Notepad++. It really doesn't matter right now, but I'll do Notepad since that's what everybody should have. And now I will right click and select paste. And here's this string. Now we're going to try and make sense of this. This is a SQL or structured query language query, and it's broken up into several clauses. It doesn't look like it, but the system sees it as such. So we're going to see here we have the select clause, and that's everything right here until we get to the next clause, which will be from. So what we can do is we can put in 2 spaces, press the enter key twice in front of the from clause, and then we can go to group by, which is the next one. Once again, put in 2 more enters. And then we're going to keep going over until we get to the having clause. And now we've broken it up into all 4 of the clauses that makes up this query. So now we can begin to edit it. Now I know that we need to break it up by the material name or material ID, whichever one we have. So if I look at my parts table, all right, we can see I have a material name and I have a material ID. Since we're going to be using the parts table, and the parts table doesn't actually have a material name, we're going to use the material ID. So to account for separate material IDs, all we have to do is edit the group by clause. All right. So right at the very end of the clause, we're going to put a comma, a space. We're going to type in parts dot open square bracket material ID close square bracket. And now it's going to group by this special material ID. So every unique item will come in. Now, the only problem we have here is that we need to edit the having clause to pull together all items that have the same material ID. So how do we do that? Well, we go to the very end of the having clause and we go back 1, because everything needs to be encompassed with this group of parentheses, which is this one and this one. So again, we go to the end of it, we press backspace, or the arrow key once, not backspace, sorry, and we just put a space, type in and, another space, put in 2 open parentheses, we'll type in parts dot material ID close bracket, close parentheses for the first one. Now we need to do equals, and now we're going to use curly braces. All right, we're going to do an open curly brace. We're going to type in material ID and a close curly brace. Finally, we're going to add the last parentheses to close off this little section right here. All right, so now why are we using the curly braces? Where does that come from? Because that's not standard SQL. Well, Cabinet Vision is going to go in and replace all of these curly braces with the values that are pulled from the parts table. That's why we're putting in material ID. If we go back to Cabinet Vision, you can see I have a material ID field. If that wasn't there, it would give me an error. So I could easily just go into the SQL here and add in the material ID if I needed. Luckily, we don't for this instance. That's it. We can go back to our query and we can compress this back down to one line. So we'll start with the having line, click anywhere on the line, hit the home key on our keyboard, and hit backspace twice. We want to make sure we don't accidentally compress it down so that the parts.material ID and the having clause touch. There has to be that space, otherwise we're going to get an error. Hit home again, backspace, backspace, home, backspace, backspace. Now, using our keyboard, we can go Control A, or we can use our mouse cursor to highlight the whole thing. Go to Edit and Copy. We're going to go back to Cabinet Vision. We're going to click on the cabinet ID, cabinet quantity. We're going to right-click and select Paste. Now we're going to close. We'll go to View Mode, and there we go. Now, if you go to View Mode and it's a blank report, don't worry, that does happen. You just go back to Report and View again, and it'll populate and fill out. If you have any questions, please let us know.